Hey drummers, Gary Williams here, your drum set mastermind and creator of the Drumset Artistry Mastermind Group. I hope you're all doing well today. So what you're looking at is a small collection of some of the very many books I've been through. So I thought what I'd do is a series on method books for drum set. So this will be the first part. So I'm just going to introduce you to some that were really influential to me. This one here called Different Drummers by a guy named Billy Mintz. I picked this up in high school at some point, and it really introduced me to all these different drummers: Max Roach, Art Blakey, Bernard Purdie, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, Roy Haynes, and more. And some of these drummers I'd heard, some I hadn't, but what the author did, which was very cool, is he would go through and he would show you a little picture of some different drummers. There's actually some cool exercises at the beginning. This is actually a Philly Joe Jones brush book that I photocopied from Jeff Hamilton many years ago. But it's really kind of a cool book. So he'd go through different drummers, show you a picture, give you a little background on them, and then have some transcriptions of some of their playing. So it was my introduction to some of these other drummers, which led to going off into some other books and checking them out. So it's kind of an older book, but pretty cool. Different drummers. See some of these guys here. Yeah, man. Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So anyways, that's that book. Here's a book I went through between the end of high school and beginning of college in that summer break. This was a book that everybody talked about. This was kind of considered the Bible of jazz coordination independence, the famous Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer by Jim Chapin. And I just really committed to doing this. I was playing in a band, and we had some band houses, and we were playing these 2-week stints. And I borrowed a practice pad drum set and committed to 4 hours a day and was able to go through this entire book that summer. Incredible what this book does. Now, a lot of drummers don't really read the directions. There's quite a few pages in the beginning of the book that talk about how you're supposed to approach the book. So one of the things I'll just say right out of the gate is that you got all these different sections with different subdivisions in a swing somewhat style. 16th notes is not the normal subdivision, but it's cool to practice this. You're supposed to go through it the way it's written, with the ride cymbal played, the snare drum part here, and your hi-hat on 2 and 4. Bass drum can be playing quarter notes. And then once you go through all the sections with the snare drum, then you're supposed to come back and do them all over again, but with the bass drum. And then after you do that, you come back and you do them with a hi-hat foot. And then lastly, you come back and you play a shuffle on the snare drum, and then the ride cymbal hand is supposed to play all the snare drum comping rhythms. So if you go through all these parts and you do all these things, paying attention to all the dynamics, you can see some of my instructions from one of my teachers at the time. I mostly just went through this on my own. I kind of got pointed in the right direction and would just really start going through all these things. It took a long time to get through some of these solos. Nice crescendos here, some amazing stuff. And then this last section's pretty cool. Really like this stuff, these more advanced rhythms with buzz strokes. So this really gave me all this coordination to be able to play. Look at that. Over. Oh, I got it. Over. Where's my smiley face? Maybe I didn't quite get it. I'm sure I did. Anyways, fantastic book. You know, it's the book we all went through before the John Riley Art of Bop Drumming books. So this next one, Syncopation for the Modern Drummer, I use this for drum set probably more than any other drum set book ever, because you can do so many things with it. You can interpret the rhythms as straight rhythms, swing rhythms. The famed pages are back here, 37 through 24, but really 29, 30, 32 through 36. This is an original version way back. And these have 4 measures of the same rhythm. And then you got this 48-bar exercise. And then when you get into, look at this, syncopation, 3 different measures of the same sounding rhythm on a snare drum, but written differently. And you get into all these syncopation rhythms. So you can orchestrate them, play swing, play the rhythms on the snare, short notes on the snare, long notes on the bass drum. It's actually a whole book published on, I know, hundreds of ways to use syncopation on the drum set to just massively grow your skills. So, you know, without going into too many details, this is an amazing resource for being able to use it for melodies. This one, Rudimental Jazz by Joe Morello, I discovered at Michael DeRozier's house when I was taking lessons with him, drummer for Heart. And what happened here is Joe Morello took the first 13 rudiments and showed you how they could sound and wrote them out in 8th notes, 8th note triplets, 16th notes, 16th note triplets. So introduced me to the idea of using like paradiddles and triplets, which was really foreign until this book. So lots of really interesting stuff in here. I went through a fair amount of this material. Really liked this book. This was one of a pile of books that my college professor, John Mowd, wanted me to go through. And we didn't go through all of them because there's just too many. But this one was very interesting because in 4/4 he had 2 measures of 5, 2 of 3, mostly swing stuff and really radical stuff. But it really got my brain thinking. I made quite a dent in the book. I can't remember how far I went, but right there. Made all the way up to page 21. Dang hard book. Bass Drum Control by Colin Bailey. This is really an amazing book. This guy is incredible. In fact, I have the worksheets from a clinic of his I attended many, many years ago and a transcription of some solos he was playing, I think, with Joe Pass. But these exercises for your foot are just absolutely amazing. Look at this, like each 10 times, metronome 80, as my teacher said at the time. So I'd go through these exercises and just kind of work on being able to shift the subdivision of my bass drum. Since then, I've done some pretty interesting things with these exercises, especially on the page 4 with the accents, where you can use a heel up technique for the accented strokes and then heel down, so kind of molar strokes. And then hand-foot combinations, just really cool. Just really, I did a lot of time out of this book because, you know, your hands are great. I did all my rudiments, but then I wanted my bass drum foot to be really happening, so you can see they're doing tons of variations. So awesome book. This one I went through cover to cover, just played through all the exercises. Roy Burns was well known at that time. He was doing a few clinics. It's a pretty comprehensive book. It talked about lots of different stuff. It was just one of those more cerebral books, but I really liked going through books because every time I finished a book, I knew a ton more than when I started. Here's the famous Future Sounds by David Garibaldi. This one where he talks about thick and thin sounds. Thick sounds playing on the side of the hi-hat cymbals with the side of the stick versus the tip stroke on top, which is more delicate. But he just did this whole thing about permutation where you take a pattern and you invert it or you permutate it. And it's really lengthy in terms of how he goes about it. But it really introduced me to some subtleties to get that kind of Garibaldi Tower Power funk sound. All these permutation studies where you're moving everything 1/16 apart. So if you got 16th notes in the pattern, then you have 16 variations according to David Garibaldi. So I made a pretty good dent in this book. It really gave me some perspectives. And then the last couple I'll finish with in part 1 here is Peter Erskine's material. Absolutely love Peter Erskine's playing, Late Weather Report and Steps Ahead, especially when he got together with that group. And this is one of his early method books and some older pictures, some cool stuff. But here he goes into all kinds of details to some different styles. His own stuff, there's some philosophies. He's always got some great, I highlighted some stuff, some quotes from Tony Williams he puts in his book, kind of like John Riley, just really nice stuff. Fast tempo discussion, spacing of the ride. And then what's really was cool for me was his Latin stuff because, you know, I was still trying to figure out how to play with more of an authentic Brazilian feel, let alone some of the Afro-Cuban stuff. And he talked about Eliane Elias, the pianist, with Steps Ahead being really influential in helping him understand more about Brazilian stuff. So he's got some of these rhythms back here, which is very cool. So, and the transcription for the very famous cool tune called Pools, one of their awesome, awesome tunes. So there was some nice transcription stuff so you could really see what he's doing in detail. And then I got this other book of his, which was Peter Erskine's The Drum Perspective. Love the title, Writing Wisdoms and Musings on the Art of Making Music. This one's more head talk. He actually has an example of some musicians playing together not sounding very good, he says. Really early picture of him with Stan Kenton. Look at that, at the jazz camp before he actually became the drummer for Stan Kenton at 19. Just really good head stuff, really good head stuff. Just loved the way he talks about stuff and just his whole perspective. So it's really kind of more of a Jedi book. But anyways, that's the first in the series. I'll give you some more later and we'll go through a lot more books. So until then, have a great day. See ya. Bye.